What would you do if, on your wedding anniversary, your husband handed you divorce papers, right after showing everyone 10 photos of you and his boss? I never thought I'd be asking myself that question, but here I am, Morwenna Hale, 33 years old, and apparently about to find out just how badly one person can destroy their own life in a single evening. It started like any other Tuesday morning. I was rushing around our middle-class suburban home, trying to get everything perfect for our 10th anniversary party. The living room needed to look flawless, the catering needed to be confirmed, and most importantly, I needed to make sure everyone saw just how successful and happy our marriage was. "Elliot, can you please help me move this table?" I called out to my husband, who was sitting at the kitchen counter with his laptop, probably working on some boring financial analysis like always. He looked up from his screen, those tired brown eyes meeting mine with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Sure, Morwenna. Which table?" "The dining room table. I want it moved closer to the window so the light hits the flowers better when people take pictures." I was already walking toward the dining room, expecting him to follow. Elliot closed his laptop slowly and stood up. At 35, he still had that lean build from his college days, though his dark hair was starting to show grey at the temples. You know, most people would just enjoy the party instead of staging it like a photo shoot. I felt that familiar flash of irritation. Most people don't have the eye for detail that I do. This is our 10th anniversary. Elliot, it needs to be perfect. We moved the heavy oak table together, and I couldn't help but notice how he seemed distracted, almost like he was thinking about something else entirely. When we finished, he just stood there for a moment, looking around the room with that same unreadable expression. "Is something wrong?" I asked, though honestly, I was more focused on adjusting the centerpiece than his answer. "No, nothing's wrong." He paused. "Actually, I have a surprise planned for tonight." That got my attention. Elliot wasn't usually the surprise type. "What kind of surprise?" He smiled, but there was something different about it, something I'd never seen before. "You'll see. I think everyone will find it very memorable." Before I could ask more questions, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen and felt my heart skip a beat. It was from Adrian Keene, Elliot's boss at the financial firm. "Can't wait for tonight. We need to talk afterward, privately. Everything changes now." I quickly turned my phone face down, but not before catching Elliot watching me. "Work stuff," I said casually. "You know how demanding the marketing department can be." "Right," Elliot said, still with that strange smile. "Work stuff." The rest of the morning flew by in a blur of preparations. I spent 2 hours at the florist, making sure the arrangements were exactly right. Then, I stopped by the Blue Fig Bistro to confirm the catering order and ran into my friend Jessica from the neighborhood. "Morwenna, how are you holding up with all the party planning?" Jessica asked, giving me a quick hug. "Oh, you know how it is. I'm doing everything myself, as usual. Elliot tries to help, but he's just not good with the details." I laughed, but there was an edge to it. Sometimes I wonder what I'd do without him, you know? Probably be a lot less stressed. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sure he appreciates everything you do." "Does he? Sometimes I'm not so sure. He's been so distant lately, so caught up in his work. I feel like I'm the only one who cares about making our marriage look successful." "Look successful," Jessica repeated. I realized how that sounded and quickly backtracked. "I mean, keeping our marriage successful. You know what I mean." But Jessica was already checking her phone. "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to run. See you tonight." As she hurried away, I felt a familiar pang of frustration. Everyone always seemed to rush off when I tried to share what I was going through. It was like nobody understood how hard it was to maintain a perfect life. I drove home thinking about Adrian's message. We'd been seeing each other for 3 months now, ever since that late night at the office when he'd stayed behind to help me with a project. He was everything Elliot wasn't. Confident, successful, exciting. At 44, Adrian had a presence that commanded attention. When he walked into a room, people noticed. The affair had started innocently enough. Just conversations about work, then longer talks about life, then dinners that ran late. Adrian understood ambition in a way that Elliot never did. He appreciated my intelligence, my drive, my need for something more than suburban mediocrity. Of course, I felt guilty sometimes, but Elliot had pushed me toward this with his emotional distance, his lack of appreciation for everything I did. A woman can only feel neglected for so long before she starts looking elsewhere for the validation she deserves. When I got home, Elliot was in the garage doing something with boxes. "What's all that?" I asked. "Just organizing some old files," he said without looking up. "Getting rid of things we don't need anymore." I was about to ask more when our 8-year-old daughter Sadie came running in from the backyard. "Mummy, is Grandma Joan coming to the party tonight?" "Yes, sweetheart, she'll be here." I knelt down to smooth Sadie's blonde hair. "Are you excited to see everyone?" Sadie nodded, but then her face grew serious. "Mummy, why have you and Daddy been fighting so much?" My heart clenched. "We haven't been fighting, honey. We've just been busy with work and getting ready for the party." "But I heard you last week. You said Daddy was—" She scrunched up her face, trying to remember. "You said he was boring and that you deserved better." I felt my face flush. I thought she'd been asleep when I'd had that phone conversation with Adrian. "Sadie, sometimes grown-ups say things when they're stressed that they don't really mean. Daddy and I love each other very much." Elliot appeared in the doorway, and I wondered how much he'd heard. "Hey, kiddo," he said to Sadie. "Want to help me set up the sound system for tonight?" As they walked away together, I felt a twist of something. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But I pushed it down. I was doing what I needed to do to be happy. That wasn't a crime. The afternoon passed quickly. My mother Linda arrived first, bringing a casserole and her usual stream of commentary about everything from my hair to my choice of tablecloth. Then came my brother Lyle, with his wife and kids, followed by Elliot's mother, Joan, and his sister, Celia. Joan had never liked me, I was sure of it. She was one of those women who thought no one was good enough for her precious son. Tonight was no different. She gave me a perfunctory hug and immediately went to find Elliot. "Morwenna," Celia said, her voice cooler than usual. "Nice party setup." "Thank you," I replied, though her tone suggested she didn't mean it as a compliment. I wanted everything to be special. "I'm sure you did." Celia's green eyes, so much like Elliot's, seemed to be studying my face. "Elliot seems different lately. More focused." "Focused on what?" "I don't know, but he's been asking a lot of questions about legal procedures lately. Divorce law, custody arrangements, that sort of thing." My blood went cold. "Why would he be asking about that?" Celia shrugged. "Maybe he's helping a friend, or maybe he's just planning ahead." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with a growing sense of unease. The party officially started at 7, and by 7:30, our house was full of neighbors, co-workers, and family members. I played the perfect hostess, making sure everyone had drinks and food, laughing at jokes, accepting compliments on the decorations. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Elliot was being too calm, too pleasant. He smiled and chatted with guests, but there was something calculating in his eyes. And every time I tried to catch his attention, he seemed to be watching me in a way that made my skin crawl. Around 8 o'clock, I stepped outside to get some air and check my phone. Adrian had sent another message. "Beautiful night for revelations. Hope you're ready for what comes next." What did that mean? I started to type a response when I heard footsteps behind me. "Getting some fresh air?" Elliot asked. I quickly put my phone away. "Just needed a break from all the noise. It's a good turnout, don't you think?" "Very good. Everyone who needs to be here is here." He moved closer, and I caught a whiff of his cologne, the same one he'd worn on our first date 12 years ago. "I think it's almost time for my surprise." "What exactly are you planning, Elliot?" His smile was enigmatic. Something I've been working on for a while now. A little presentation about our marriage, our life together. I think our guests will find it very enlightening. Before I could ask what he meant, he was walking back toward the house. I followed, my heart beating faster than it should have been. Inside, Elliot was setting up his laptop and connecting it to the large TV in the living room. "Everyone," he called out, "if I could have your attention for just a moment." The conversations died down as people gathered in the living room. I found myself standing near the back, next to my mother, with a growing sense of dread. 10 years ago, Elliot began, Morwenna and I promised to love, honor, and cherish each other. Tonight, I want to share with you all exactly how that promise has been kept. He clicked something on his laptop, and the TV screen came to life. The first image made my world tilt sideways. It was a photo of me and Adrian in his office, taken from outside the window. We were kissing, my hands tangled in his hair, his arms wrapped around my waist. The timestamp showed it was from 2 weeks ago. The room went completely silent. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. I stared at the screen, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not like this, not in front of everyone. "Elliot," I managed to whisper, but my voice came out as barely a croak. He clicked to the next photo. This one showed Adrian and me at the Blue Fig Bistro, sitting in the corner booth I thought was private. His hand was covering mine on the table, and I was leaning toward him with an expression of obvious intimacy. The timestamp was from last month. "What the hell is this?" Celia's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I looked around the room at the faces of everyone I cared about. My mother's hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Joan was standing ramrod straight, her face a mask of cold fury. Lyle looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. The neighbors and co-workers were staring with a mixture of horror and fascination that made me want to vomit. "Elliot, stop this right now," I said, finding my voice. "This isn't what it looks like." "Isn't it?" He clicked to the third photo. Adrian and me walking out of the downtown Marriott Hotel, his arm around my waist, both of us laughing. "Because it looks pretty clear to me." "You don't understand," I started, moving toward the front of the room. "Adrian and I work together. Sometimes we have to have business meetings. At hotels." Joan's voice was ice cold. "What kind of business meetings happen at hotels, Morwenna?" The fourth photo appeared on the screen. This one was taken through the window of Adrian's car. I was in the passenger seat, and he was kissing my neck while I tilted my head back in obvious pleasure. "Oh my God," someone whispered. I think it was Jessica. "Elliot, please," I said, my voice breaking. "Can we talk about this privately? You're embarrassing our daughter." "Sadie's at my mother's house for the night," Elliot said calmly. "I made sure she wouldn't have to see this. Unlike some people, I actually think about how my actions affect our child." Photo 5. Adrian and me in the parking garage of his office building, pressed against his car, my legs wrapped around his waist. Photo 6. The two of us at a restaurant across town, feeding each other dessert. Photo 7. Walking hand in hand through the park where Elliot and I had our first date. "How long has this been going on?" Celia demanded. "It's not what you think," I said desperately. "Yes, Adrian and I have gotten close, but it's because Elliot has been so distant, so cold. He pushed me toward this with his neglect." "So this is my fault?" Elliot asked, and for the first time, I heard real emotion in his voice. Hurt. Deep, cutting hurt that made my chest tighten with guilt. "Not your fault, but you have to understand, I've been so lonely. You work all the time. You never want to talk about anything meaningful. You act like our marriage is just some obligation you have to endure." Photo 8. Adrian and me in what was clearly his apartment, visible through a window. I was wearing one of his shirts and nothing else, curled up against him on his couch. The room erupted. "How could you do this to him?" Celia shouted. "How could you humiliate him like this?" "Morwenna," my mother said, her voice shaking. "How could you be so careless? So stupid." "Stupid?" I whirled to face her. I'm stupid for trying to find some happiness, for wanting to feel valued and appreciated. You're stupid for throwing away your family, Jones said, stepping forward. You're stupid for betraying a good man who loved you. You're stupid for doing this to your daughter. Don't you dare bring Sadie into this, I snapped. Everything I do is for her. I want her to see that women don't have to settle for less than they deserve. Less than they deserve? Lyle finally spoke up, his voice quiet but furious. Elliot is a good husband and father. He works hard, he provides for you, he's never raised a hand to you or said a cruel word. What exactly did you deserve that he wasn't giving you? Photo 9. Adrian and me at what looked like a work conference, but we were clearly not paying attention to any presentation. His hand was on my thigh under the table, and I was whispering something in his ear that made him smile. Excitement, I said, my voice rising. Passion. Someone who looks at me like I'm the most important thing in the world. Someone who makes me feel alive instead of like I'm slowly dying of boredom. So you decided to have an affair with his boss? One of the neighbors asked. With the man who controls his career? I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. The realization hit me like a slap. Adrian wasn't just some random man. He was Elliot's superior at work. Our affair could cost Elliot his job, his professional reputation, everything he'd worked for. That's not... I didn't think... I stammered. Photo 10, the most damaging one yet. Adrian and me in his office, but this time we weren't just kissing. I was sitting on his desk, my skirt hiked up, his hands on my bare thighs, both of us in a state of obvious undress. The timestamp showed it was from just 3 days ago. The silence that followed was deafening. Well, Elliot said, closing the laptop, I think that covers the highlights of the past 3 months. 3 months? Joan's voice was barely controlled rage. This has been going on for 3 months. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. The weight of what I'd done, what I'd lost, what I'd destroyed, was crushing down on me like a physical force. Elliot, I whispered, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can... No, he said simply. We can't. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. I think you'll want to read these. With shaking hands, I took the envelope and opened it. Inside were legal documents, divorce papers, custody arrangements, financial settlements. Everything was already filled out, already filed with the court. You've already started divorce proceedings. 3 weeks ago, Elliot said, right after I got the photos from the private investigator. Private investigator? The words came out as a squeak. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the way you started dressing differently, wearing new perfume. I'm not stupid, Morwenna. I just wanted proof before I acted. I sank onto the couch, the papers scattered around me. But we can work this out. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I'll end things with Adrian. I'll do whatever you want. It's too late for that. Elliot's voice was steady, final. The trust is gone. The respect is gone. The love died the first time you chose him over our family. I never chose him over our family, I protested. I needed something for myself, something that made me feel special. At the expense of your husband and daughter, Celia said coldly. At the expense of everyone who loved and trusted you. I looked around the room again, seeing the faces of people I'd known for years. Neighbors who'd shared barbecues and block parties with us. Co-workers who'd celebrated promotions and birthdays. Family members who'd supported us through good times and bad. They were all looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was something disgusting they'd found on the bottom of their shoe. I think everyone should leave now, Elliot said quietly. Morwenna and I have things to discuss. We're not leaving you alone with her, Joan said immediately. Not after this. I'll be fine, Mom, really. But this is something we need to handle privately. One by one, the guests filed out. Some of them wouldn't meet my eyes. Others stared at me with open disgust. My mother stopped beside me, her face pale and drawn. I raised you better than this, she said softly. I don't know what happened to the daughter I thought I knew. Mum, please. But she was already walking away, following the others out the door. Soon it was just Elliot and me in the living room, that an hour ago had been full of laughter and celebration. The decorations I'd spent so much time arranging looked garish now, mocking reminders of the life I'd just destroyed. How long have you known? I asked. I suspected for about 6 weeks. I hired the investigator 4 weeks ago. I've had the photos for 3 weeks. And you've just been pretending, acting normal. I've been planning. Elliot sat down across from me, his posture relaxed but his eyes hard. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed to protect Sadie and myself. Protect yourself from what? I'm not some kind of monster. Aren't you? He leaned forward slightly. You've been lying to my face for 3 months. You've been sleeping with my boss, potentially jeopardizing my career. You've been exposing our daughter to the tension and conflict that comes from a broken marriage. You've been planning to continue this affair indefinitely, haven't you? I couldn't answer because he was right. I had been planning to continue seeing Adrian. I'd told myself I could manage both relationships, keep everyone happy, have my cake and eat it too. What happens now? I asked. Now you move out. The house is in my name. And given the circumstances, my lawyer is confident I'll be able to keep it. You'll have visitation with Sadie, but I'll have primary custody. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from the chaos you've created. Do you think this is the kind of environment a child should grow up in? Do you think she should have to watch her mother parade around with her father's boss? The words hit me like physical blows. It wouldn't be like that. I would be discreet. Like you were discreet for the past 3 months. Elliot's laugh was bitter. Morwenna, half the neighborhood suspected something was going on. Mrs. Peterson saw you and Adrian in his car outside the elementary school last week. The secretary at your office has been covering for your extended lunch breaks. You've been about as discreet as a marching band. I felt the walls of my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. What about Adrian? What are you going to do about him? What do you mean? Are you going to report him to HR, try to get him fired, ruin his career? Elliot studied my face for a long moment. You're worried about him. Even now, after everything that's happened tonight, you're worried about protecting him. I'm not. That's not. But I was. Even in the midst of losing everything, I was concerned about what this would mean for Adrian. That tells me everything I need to know, Elliot said, standing up. You're still choosing him over your family. Even now. That's not true. Then prove it. Call him right now and tell him it's over. Tell him you want to work on your marriage and you never want to see him again. I reached for my phone, then hesitated. The thought of cutting Adrian out of my life completely, of going back to the mundane routine of suburban marriage, made me feel physically ill. I can't, I whispered, because you love him. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know anything anymore. Elliot nodded sadly. At least you're finally being honest. He walked toward the stairs, then paused. You can stay tonight, but I want you out by the weekend. My lawyer will be in touch about the custody arrangements and financial settlement. Elliot, wait. I stood up, desperate to salvage something from this disaster. What if I ended things with Adrian? What if I moved out temporarily, went to therapy, proved to you that I could change? Then maybe, in a few years, after the divorce is final, we could try to be friends. For Sadie's sake. Friends? The word felt like a death sentence. That's all I can offer you, Morwenna. The marriage is over. The trust is gone. What you did tonight, humiliating me in front of our friends and family, choosing to defend your affair partner instead of your husband, there's no coming back from that. He continued up the stairs, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our anniversary party. I sank back onto the couch and buried my face in my hands. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? This morning, I'd been planning a perfect anniversary celebration. Tonight, I was facing divorce, custody battles, and social exile. My phone buzzed with the text from Adrian. Saw the cars leaving early. Everything okay? Should I come over? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, No, don't come. I'll call you tomorrow. But even as I sent the message, I knew that tomorrow would bring a whole new set of problems. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't sure Adrian would be there to help me face them. The next morning, I woke up on the living room couch with a crick in my neck and the devastating realization that last night hadn't been a nightmare. The empty wine glasses and scattered legal papers on the coffee table were proof that my marriage, my reputation, and my carefully constructed life had all imploded in the span of 2 hours. Elliot had already left for work. I could hear the shower running upstairs, which meant he'd gotten ready without waking me, probably on purpose. The house felt different somehow, colder, more hostile, like even the walls knew I didn't belong here anymore. I called in sick to work, knowing I couldn't face my colleagues after what had happened. News travelled fast in our social circle, and by now, everyone would know about the affair. I could already imagine the whispered conversations, the pitying looks, the way people would suddenly stop talking when I walked into a room. My phone had been buzzing all morning with missed calls and text messages. Most were from family members and friends demanding explanations. A few were from neighbours, probably wanting to gossip about the drama. But the one that made my stomach clench was from Adrian. We need to talk. Meet me at the usual place at noon. The usual place was a small coffee shop downtown, far enough from our neighbourhood that we'd never worried about running into anyone we knew. It seemed pathetic now, all the sneaking around and secret meetings. Had we really thought we were being clever? I spent an hour getting ready, trying to make myself look like I had some semblance of control over my life. But the woman staring back at me from the bathroom mirror looked haggard and desperate. My blonde hair was limp, my green eyes were rimmed with red from crying, and no amount of concealer could hide the stress lines that seemed to have appeared overnight. The drive to the coffee shop gave me time to think about what I was going to say to Adrian. Part of me hoped he would have some kind of solution, some way to fix this mess, but a larger part of me was beginning to realize that Adrian might not be the man I thought he was. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in our usual corner booth with 2 cups of coffee. At 44, Adrian still had the kind of presence that made women notice him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and intelligent blue eyes. He was wearing one of his expensive suits, the kind that probably cost more than Elliot made in a month. "You look terrible," he said, as I slid into the booth across from him. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now." "I'm sorry, I just meant, this whole situation has obviously taken a toll on you." He reached across the table to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Did you know?" I asked. "Know what?" "About the photos, about Elliot hiring a private investigator. Did you know any of it?" Adrian's expression shifted slightly, and I caught a flicker of something that might have been guilt. I suspected he might be suspicious. There were some signs at work. He'd been asking odd questions, staying late to go through files he normally wouldn't care about. "And you didn't think to warn me?" "I thought we were being careful enough. I never imagined he'd go to such lengths to document everything." The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. "Such lengths? Adrian, he hired a professional investigator. He has photos of us in compromising positions. He's filing for divorce and trying to take custody of my daughter. This isn't some minor inconvenience." "I understand you're upset." "Upset?" My voice rose, causing other customers to look in our direction. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. "My life is ruined. My marriage is over. My family hates me. My friends won't speak to me. I'm about to lose my house and possibly my daughter. Upset doesn't begin to cover it." Adrian leaned back in his seat, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked uncomfortable. "Look, Morwenna, I care about you. You know that, but we both knew this was a risk when we started seeing each other." "A risk? Is that what I am to you? A risk?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Because right now it sounds like you're trying to distance yourself from the consequences of our relationship." He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his expression was guarded. "What do you want me to say? That I'll leave my wife for you? That I'll throw away my career and my reputation to ride off into the sunset together?" The bluntness of his words hit me like a slap. "I want you to say that what we have means something to you, that it was worth the risk." It was, it is. But we have to be realistic about our options now. "Our options?" "My options," he corrected. "Morwenna, I have a wife, 2 teenagers, a mortgage, and a career that I've spent 20 years building. I can't just walk away from all of that." "But you expected me to walk away from my marriage." "You were already walking away from your marriage. You told me yourself that you and Elliot were basically roommates, that the love was gone, that you were staying together for Sadie's sake." Had I said those things? Looking back, I realized I had. I'd painted my marriage as loveless and dead to justify the affair, both to Adrian and to myself. But sitting here now, remembering the hurt in Elliot's eyes last night, I wasn't sure any of it had been true. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we have to be smart. The best thing for both of us is to end this cleanly. No more contact, no more meetings. You focus on your divorce and custody arrangements. I focus on damage control at work." "Damage control? Morwenna, I'm Elliot's boss. This affair could be seen as a conflict of interest, possibly even sexual harassment if anyone decides to interpret it that way. I need to protect myself professionally." The cold calculation in his voice made me feel sick. "So you're just going to pretend this never happened?" "I'm going to be discreet about it, the same way we should have been from the beginning." "We were discreet." "Apparently not discreet enough." He checked his expensive watch. "I should get back to the office. I have a meeting with HR this afternoon." "About us?" "About the situation. Elliot requested a transfer to a different department, effective immediately. They want to make sure there are no legal issues." I felt like I was drowning. "He's transferring departments because of me?" "He's transferring departments because working directly under me would be awkward for everyone involved. It's actually a good move for him. The position comes with a promotion and a salary increase." "A promotion?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "Elliot is good at his job, Morwenna. Very good. The affair doesn't change that." Adrian stood up, straightening his tie. "Take care of yourself, and maybe think about what you really want before you make any more decisions about your future." He walked away without looking back, leaving me alone in the coffee shop with the devastating realization that the man I'd thrown away my marriage for didn't love me. He'd never loved me. I'd been a diversion, a midlife crisis, a temporary escape from his own mundane reality. I sat there for another hour, nursing my cold coffee and trying to figure out what to do next. My phone kept buzzing with messages, but I ignored them all except one from my brother Lyle. "Mum wants to talk to you. She's at your house." The drive home felt like a funeral procession. I kept thinking about all the times I'd made the same trip after meeting Adrian, feeling excited and alive and special. Now I just felt empty. My mother's car was in the driveway when I pulled up. Linda Groves was 61 years old and had always been my biggest supporter, the one person who believed I could do no wrong. If I'd lost her too, I truly had nothing left. She was waiting in the living room, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch with her purse clutched in her lap. She looked older than she had yesterday, like the shock of last night had aged her overnight. "Mom," I said, sitting down across from her, "I'm glad you came. I wanted to explain—" "Explain what?" Her voice was cold, controlled. "Explain how you betrayed your husband. Explain how you humiliated your family. Explain how you've been lying to everyone who loves you for months. It's not that simple, isn't it? You had an affair, Morwenna. You chose to have an affair with your husband's boss, and then you chose to defend that affair in front of your entire family. How is that complicated?" I felt tears starting to form. "I was lonely, Mum. I felt trapped and invisible and like my life was just slipping away. Adrian made me feel alive again. So you destroyed your marriage to feel alive? I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But people did get hurt. Elliot is hurt. Sadie is going to be hurt when she finds out why Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced. Your brother is hurt that you put him in the position of having to choose sides. I'm hurt that my daughter could be so selfish and reckless. The word selfish hit me like a physical blow. I'm not selfish. I just wanted to be happy. At everyone else's expense. Mom set her purse down and leaned forward. Morwenna, I've been thinking about this all night, and I need you to help me understand something. What did Elliot do to deserve this? He didn't do anything specific. It was more what he didn't do. He didn't pay attention to me, didn't make me feel special, didn't seem to care about my dreams and ambitions. Did you tell him how you were feeling? I tried, but he was always too busy with work or too tired to have serious conversations. So you decided to have an affair instead of marriage counseling? I didn't decide anything. It just happened. Affairs don't just happen, Morwenna. They're a series of choices. You chose to spend time alone with Adrian. You chose to share personal information with him. You chose to meet him outside of work. You chose to kiss him, to sleep with him, to lie to your husband about where you were and what you were doing. Every step of the way, you made a choice. I couldn't argue with that logic, so I tried a different approach. What about what I need? What about my happiness? Doesn't that matter? Of course it matters, but not at the expense of everyone else's happiness. Not when it means breaking promises you made, betraying people who trusted you, and potentially damaging your daughter's emotional well-being. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, I asked the question I was dreading. Are you going to cut me off too, like Joan and Celia? Mom sighed deeply. I don't know, honey. I really don't know. I love you, but I'm so disappointed in you right now that I can barely look at you. And I'm angry, angrier than I've ever been in my life. I'm still your daughter. You're a version of my daughter that I don't recognize. The Morwenna I raised would never have done something like this. After she left, I spent the rest of the afternoon going through the legal papers Elliot had given me. The divorce petition was thorough and damning, citing adultery as the grounds for dissolution of marriage. The custody arrangement gave Elliot primary physical custody of Sadie, with me getting alternate weekends and one evening per week. The financial settlement was more generous than I'd expected. I would get half the value of our savings and retirement accounts, plus temporary spousal support for 2 years. But I would have to give up any claim to the house, and I would be responsible for my own legal fees. It was fair, I had to admit. More than fair, considering the circumstances. Elliot could have tried to leave me with nothing, but he hadn't. Even in his anger and hurt, he was being decent. That realization made me cry harder than I had all day. By evening, I'd made a decision. I called the law firm listed on the divorce papers and made an appointment to see my own attorney. If my marriage was really over, if there was no chance of reconciliation, then I needed to protect what little I had left. But as I sat alone in the house, that would soon no longer be mine, surrounded by the remnants of our anniversary party, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And unlike the affair, this was one mistake I might never be able to fix.